Our military analyst, Sean Bell, is here with me now. Good time, Sean, I think, to bring people up to speed with what's been happening this morning.
Yeah, I think the big change for me is that we've seen, now that we know that the Iranian leadership has been taken out, there was a sense that President Trump's objective for this military operation had been achieved. Regime change, get rid of all the leadership, now we're ready to go. And therefore, there was the potential, given that Trump doesn't want to get involved in a long operation. What we have seen now is, I think, over 1,200 munitions dropped by the Israeli Defence Forces over the last 24 hours. Largely, I think we've got a map somewhere that shows they've largely focused on Tehran, which is now, although we've got, that's not quite the right map, there's another map that shows actually Iran and where we've been targeting. Where it's been targeted. There we go. Now, all of these in the northwest corner of Iran. What's interesting, in early days, you're going to knock down all the air defence systems. And that would probably have been a largely American task because they've got the superior technology. Now, it does look like the focus is of Tehran. We've seen some very dramatic pictures of the headquarters being taken out there. And I think for me, the really interesting bit here is military action is only a means to an end. The end is political outcomes. President Trump was clear, regime change. It feels to me this is time to stop and go, right, Iran, we've demonstrated we were trying to negotiate. Let's try and negotiate again. Now you know we're serious. Meanwhile, Israel seems to be to degrade Iran's military capabilities as far as it can. That divergence is really interesting.
Definitely divergence, or could that have been the strategy all along? America seeks to, like you say, take out the Ayatollah and his senior leadership, and Israel carries on. Do you think that could have been pre-planned?
It could have been, but I think it'll be the other way around. One of the things that confused me about the initial phase of this operation was that we saw the Tomahawk missiles, we saw the jets all going in daylight.
Yeah.
As a military guy, you always plan at 2 or 3 in the morning when circadian rhythms are low, everybody's asleep, nobody's ready. And the intelligence suggests that actually Israel had said, we will look after the leadership, because you know how we were talking just before we came on air about Hezbollah?
Yes.
They'd infiltrated Hezbollah completely. Well, I think they've also infiltrated Iran very effectively, so they knew where everybody was. And suddenly, it sounded like a window of opportunity that suddenly they knew where the top trumps were, and they went, we've got to go now. And therefore almost certainly led the operation. And it does appear now that they were very successful, that those strikes were successful. Now, America had said we were interested in the uranium enrichment facilities, but if the objective was regime change in order to get them to negotiate properly, and President Trump, frankly, does not want a long war here,
no.
It felt like there was the opportunity to stop, because the longer this goes on, the more we're seeing the acts of retribution on the television of Iran.
Whilst we have that map still on the screen, Sean, it'd be interesting to talk about some of the tactical elements of the military operation from the point of view of Israel and the US, because just a little bit earlier we mentioned a Jamaran-class corvette was struck by US forces at Chabahar Pier, which you can see on the map is just on the bottom right in the Gulf of Oman. I mean, quite away from the Strait of Hormuz, but that is strategically significant, is it?
It is. The corvette itself is not. I mean, it's a relatively small vessel. But your point is that Iran is a minnow when it comes to a military. I mean, against the Americans, it's a minnow. A couple of advantages it's got, one of which it has loads of these ballistic missiles and therefore can overwhelm defences. We were saying quantity sometimes has a quality all of its own. But the other control feature it has the Straits of Hormuz. And I think we've got another map that shows why that's really important, because there's a link between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. It's only about 24 miles wide. But before the conflict started, Iran managed to close it down just by doing some live exercise around there. We can see on the left is the Persian Gulf, on the right is the Gulf of Oman. All these little flashes are different shipping. But now there's no oil tankers going through that region. And it's only the threat of Iran doing it. And almost certainly the proxies are what are doing this. You'll recall it was about a year ago that Iran was threatening with the Houthis, and they're now active again. So all of a sudden, this attack against a corvette just a bit further down the coast, I think is illustrative of the fact that America does not want to be fueling the fire of any more military capability there. And the Houthis have proven particularly difficult to target. And if it was just by way of illustration, 24 miles sounds like a long way. That means from one coast you can see the other side. And these oil tankers that are going, and often up to half a kilometre long, they're enormous. They travel about 12 knots. And therefore, they're really easy to target.
Yes.
And no insurance in the world would cover you if the Houthis are going to potentially mount an attack.
As you've been speaking, Sean, we've learned that 3 US service members have been killed in action and 5 are seriously wounded as part of Operation Epic Fury. That coming from US Central Command. They say several others have sustained minor shrapnel injuries and concussions, and they're in the process of being returned to duty. Major combat operations, they say, continue, and our response effort is ongoing. The situation is fluid, so out of respect for the families, they say, here is the statement right now, out of respect for the families, we will withhold information, additional information, including the identities of our fallen warriors, until 24 hours after next of kin have been notified. So this coming from CENTCOM in the past few moments, that as of 9:30 in the morning Eastern Time, 5 hours behind GMT, 3 American service members have been killed in action, 5 are seriously wounded, and several others have sustained minor injuries. Clearly, Sean, illustrating that despite the might of the American military, this is not without some risks to them, and Donald Trump warned as much in his speech the other night.
Yeah, I mean, particularly when you have ballistic missiles, without going to, we haven't got time, but ballistic missiles go out of the Earth's atmosphere, go hypersonic, and then drop down again. They're incredibly difficult to target. You're effectively trying to target something that's running 3 times the speed of a bullet, and you've got to hit them. So they're very, very difficult to hit. The Americans have a Patriot system and a THAAD system bristling all over the Middle East, but inevitably they may be able to take 1, 2, 5, 10 missiles out. Iran puts 50 missiles, some will get through. And although tactically they're not particularly effective missiles, but as we've seen for some of the explosions, they only have to get lucky once. They can miss with 99, and all of a sudden that makes life very difficult for President Trump, because casualties, particularly deaths, will not play well for a president who's defining himself by his ability to bring peace, not start wars.